I'm a big fan of Samsung's S Pen, and since you're watching this, I'm going to assume that you are too. I'm also going to assume that, like me, you were not too happy when you found out S Pen functionality had been removed from the Z Fold 7. What the sh**? So it was at that moment that I decided to start a quest to find the best S Pen replacement for the Fold 7. And after testing a bunch of different options, I actually found two. And while I can tell you that neither solution is a perfect S Pen replacement, they both work better than I expected, and they actually have a couple of nice advantages over the S Pen. What the sh**? I know, I was surprised too. And before anybody starts railing on me down in the comments, yes, I know none of these are new solutions, and these types of capacitive styluses have been around for quite some time. But most of those solutions, including the ones I tested for this review, aren't very good, with most of them either having mushy tips and or requiring too much pressure to be precise. But there really are some decent options out there, and they can all be found on Amazon. And I will include links to all of the items I mentioned in this video down in the description.
That's helpful.
And up first, and probably my favorite S Pen alternative, is the 4-in-1 stylus pen from Pena. And as the name implies, the pen actually has 4 usable tips: a 0.23-inch mesh tip, a 0.27-inch clear disc tip, a 0.16-inch rubber tip, and if you want to go full-on caveman, you can actually use it as a real ink pen, with like paper and stuff.
Savage.
And the tip I find myself using the most is the rubber tip. The rubber tip on most of the other styluses I tested were bigger, and as I mentioned earlier, required too much pressure to be precise. But the rubber tip on the Pena is small enough, works with a light enough touch, and produces just enough friction that selecting text or writing with it proves a pretty smooth experience. There's actually a larger rubber replacement tip packaged with the pen along with a bunch of other replacement tips, but I'm not sure why you would want to use it, especially when if you want a larger tip, you can just use the mesh tip. It provides less friction than the rubber tip and is great for scrolling when you don't want to smudge up your display, and some may prefer it for drawing. However, if you are a more artsy-fartsy type, the disc tip will probably be a preferred method for drawing and sketching, because not only is it the most precise tip, it also requires very little pressure and it glides along the screen really nicely. Now you might be wondering, if the disc tip is the most accurate, why wouldn't someone just use that tip all the time? And the answer is, you can, but I personally don't prefer it for writing, since the flexibility of the tip makes it kind of tricky when you need to keep lifting it up and placing it back down on the screen. But the nice thing about this stylus solution is, since you have different options, each with their own pros and cons, you can use the one you want, when you want, without needing to decide on any one solution to bring with you. And this stylus also has some other nice advantages as well. In my testing, none of the tips suffered from any noticeable lag, the pen is a nice size and has a nice weight and feel to it, which I find is actually more comfortable to write with than the S Pen, especially for longer periods of time. The other advantage the solution has over the S Pen is you can use it on the outer screen. Just make sure to turn on touch sensitivity if you are using a screen protector, which I strongly recommend using on this phone, because the giant stonking camera hump on the back of the Fold 7 will mean you are almost always going to sit the phone face down. However, even if you aren't using a screen protector, you might still want to turn on touch sensitivity, as it does seem to make the stylus feel more responsive on the inner screen as well. In fact, all of the tips on this stylus should work on most screens, although obviously I can't guarantee that, except for the actual pen tip. Don't do that.
I'm not an idiot.
Of course, this solution does also come with some drawbacks. While the size of the pen does make it comfortable to use, it's a bit large to attach to the back of a case. However, there are some pen holders out there if you want to make a go of it. Personally, I have just been carrying the pen around separately in my pocket. It even comes with a felt sleeve if you want to keep the metal casing from banging around on your keys or your phone. Other drawbacks include there is no way to use it to bring up the S Pen or hover menus. There's no pressure sensitivity, although honestly I didn't really notice that. There's also no palm rejection, but once again, I really didn't mind that, since even when the fold is open, it isn't so big I ever really need to rest my hand on it when I'm writing. But what I did notice, and you probably will too with this S Pen alternative, is precision, or more specifically, a lack thereof. This isn't surprising, since precision is probably the S Pen's biggest strength. And while none of the tips on the Pena stylus have S Pen levels of precision, they do provide a closer experience than I expected, and they definitely provide a better level of precision than your finger. On a scale of 1 to 10, if writing and drawing with your finger was a 1 and using the S Pen was a 10, I would give the Pena stylus a solid 7.
Not too shabby.
The other best alternative I found is for those of you who really want a stylus solution you can keep in a case. However, this solution is slightly more complicated. I've tried multiple S Pen cases over the years, and while a lot of them were nice cases, the included styluses were never very good. However, in my latest quest, I was actually able to find a decent third-party case stylus, but this time, the case sucked.
That figures.
So the stylus I discovered came with a pen case from Huolungjin. Huolungjin. Probably not saying that right. If you want one, just use the link in the description.
Got it.
It's not as nice or as versatile as the pen stylus, but it's also not bad. If riding with the pen stylus was a 7 out of 10, I would give this one a 5.5. The pen has a rubber tip that isn't overly mushy, and you only need to apply a small amount of pressure to achieve the appropriate screen response. And also, like the pen stylus, the pen will also work on the outer screen. But also like the pen stylus, there is no pressure sensitivity, palm rejection, or S Pen menu access. Perhaps most importantly though, this stylus has almost identical dimensions to the S Pen, so it should fit most stylus-compatible cases. The reason I don't like the case it comes with is the little slider you would normally use to easily pop the pen out of the back of the case doesn't work. So getting the pen out of the case is a huge pain. I don't know if I got a defective case or if this is just an issue this case has. But since the pen does fit in other cases, you can just mix and match. One such case I used for this was the stylus case from Meemaw. Once again, not sure I'm saying that right. It's a decent minimalist case with a built-in screen protector, and the pen from the Huolungjin case fits in it perfectly. Of course, the Meemaw comes with its own stylus, but the tip is pretty mushy and it's not near as good. So while I did have to Frankenstein the solution together, it does work pretty well.
Not bad.
Well, that's all the information I have for one day. And hopefully at least one of these solutions can provide your bruised S Pen loving heart some relief. And if you do wind up trying out one of these solutions, or if you manage to find your own S Pen alternative you feel is worth sharing, please do so down in the comments. That way we can all continue to learn from each other and make more informed buying decisions. As always, I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for watching, and until next time, this is Rando Tech Info, signing out.